In this lesson, we're going to go over how to make a scene, a complex scene with multiple image planes. And for future lessons, and when you start modeling, on your work or, working at a facility, many times you're going to bring in multiple views of an object. So you have to kind of understand how to bring in multiple views and how to place them, how to deal with them, how to switch them on and off. Like at some points you're going to want to be in a side view, you're going to want to have a top view, you might want to have a front view. So we're going to go over the whole way what you need to do to set this all up. So the first thing, I'm going to start right from the beginning. So an essential thing, and we touched on this in a few other lessons, is you have to have your Maya project set up, and you have to set the project, and you have to put images in the correct place for them to read correctly into Maya. So I'm going to go through the whole step, all the steps here. I'm going to go up to File. I'm going to go over to the project window. Actually, no, we're not making a new one. We're just going to do a set. I actually have one set up already. So I'm going to go to Set Project. Okay. So this is set up for a previous lesson we were doing. So I'm going to go zoom. I'm going to go up, and I'm going to look for the lesson I'm going to be doing here right now. Here we go. We're going to be in Maya image plane intermediate. Okay. And I'm not in the model directory. I have a my project already set up. So if I double clicked in here, you could see everything in here, but I don't want to be there. I'm going to use this blue button. Remember, when you set a project, you always have to set to the top directory. Okay, it's asking for a directory. So don't go within. If you've already made a Maya project file, don't go inside the file structure and go to scenes or go to images or anything like that. You always want to be in the top directory. Okay, so I made a directory called, or project, a Maya project called image plane intermediate. Okay, so I'm going to select on that, and I hit set. Okay, so now one thing when you set a project, just to make sure you're in the right place and make sure it is set. Sometimes, for whatever reason, it doesn't set correctly. The first thing you want to do, just to check it, is you're going to go to Save, or you're going to go to File, and you'll go to Save Scene As. And you won't save anything here, but this will let you know if you're in the right place. Okay, so you look up here. It'll say Look In. So you're going to Save As, and you look in. So this will tell you if you're in the right directory. Okay, so that was the project I just set, was image plane intermediate. And scenes is the directory where geometry files always go, or your whole Maya scene, scene with cameras and lights and colors and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so I'm going to hit cancel here. I don't want that. I don't want to save anything because I don't have anything in here. Okay, so I am going to minimize the window, and I have set up some directories here just to see the whole process, how to get image planes into the right place in Maya in a project scene. Okay, so we'll do a class just on directories and saving files and where to put files and things like that, because being organized is really important with 3D modeling, and especially with Maya. So wherever you download files, or wherever you store file, wherever you're getting your files. I just have a directory here. It's my E drive, my data drive, and I just put these images in temp. So we're going to use an example of a 1967 Volkswagen Beetle, a classic car, classic model. Okay, so I'm going to click on these, and I'm going to move them. Well, before I move them, hold on, let me show you what's going on over here in this top directory here. So this is, if I went up all the way up to my 3D lessons, and on your computer, wherever you save your class files or your working files, or whatever you're doing, just find a spot that you like to save your data, and that's where it's going to be. So what I did was the same thing that's in here, the Maya project file. So I created that. So what I'm going to do, and that's in these directories here. Okay, so I'm going to double click on this just to show everybody. So here, this looks exactly like a Maya scene file that you would see in Maya here. So if I went back over here, and if I went to, see, can I get the files there? No, the zoom controls are, all right. Anyway, so this would mimic the exact same thing in your Maya project file here. Okay, so this is it. Okay, so in there, that's where you're gonna find your scenes directory, where you would save a file. But this is the directory you want to put images into that you're going to be using in Maya. It's called source images. Now remember that. It's going to be really important. These two directories are going to be very important to you right now. Scenes is where all your geometry is going to be. And source images, so if you're bringing some kind of files in, like some drawings or some images or some reference for texture maps. Later on, when you start doing texture maps, when you start putting color on your objects, like if you want to make something look like stone, you're going to bring a stone photograph and you're going to drop it into this directory here. So for right now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to double click in there, and I don't have anything in here right now. So I'm going to click on the files here in the temp directory, and I'm going to copy them. So however you like to copy and paste, if you like to use hotkeys, or if you want to, drag and drop, whatever it is you want to do. If you're on Windows, you're on Mac. So I'm just, my Windows here. So I'm going to do it's going to ask me to copy some. Yes, I'm going to copy here. Okay, so now I have all my images here in that directory. Okay, so now I'm going to go back over to Maya, pop up in a full screen. All right, just as we did in the first directory, in the first lesson with image planes, you have to be in the file view that you want to put your image in. So here I am in the quad view. So if I want to go up to my panel layouts here, I can go over here if I want to use an icon. I can do that, or I could just use the spacebar. All right, so the first image I'm going to bring in it's in my side view. So I'm going to go down here to the lower right, and you can always look. It always has a label here for what your camera view is. That's for your perspective window. This is your side view, which goes along your x-axis, front view along z, and top on y. Okay, so I'm going to click into that window. I'm going to hit space bar so it zooms out. Okay. In the first image planes lesson, we went over this, but I'm gonna reiterate every time. So your image plane button is right here. This is your panel tools here, your different kind of display tools for your panel here. So, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in. Okay, so I'm gonna click on that. Okay, so because I set up a Maya project properly, it goes directly to that directory. See that directory? So that's the Maya project I created, which was image plane intermediate. And then it goes directly to source images. So that was the thing I've been telling everybody about, all the pointers and things like that. So Maya will point to different things. It's a little complicated, a little confusing when you first start in Maya, but after a while you'll get used to all this stuff. It just takes practice. Okay, so now also too, being very organized with your files, naming and things like that. So I've got mine all named, really nice clean names, with views and good information, etc. So I want my side view. Okay, so I'm going to hit that. I know that because I'm in my side here. It says side there. It says side there, and I'm going to hit open. Okay, there you go. Voila, popped right in. It's exactly where I want it, how I want it. So I'm going to hit the space bar. And you can see it's selected because it's an object. Image planes are objects. So I can pick on it, okay? And I can go into this view, my perspective view, and you can see I can tumble around. It's an actual thing. It's like having a big cardboard thing with a drawing on it or picture, okay? All right, so we're going to go over some controls of switching these things on and off. We did a little bit of that when with the first lesson, DaVinci model, but we're going to do even more of it here. Okay, so I'm hitting spacebar again. All right, so now I want to bring in two key modeling views that I'm going to be using for this one are side and top. So top one's probably the next most important one for me, how I'm thinking about how to model this. Okay, so now I'm going to go over to the top view. So you put your mouse over there, hit spacebar, and now that's zoomed out. Okay, so now I go up to the top here, to the panel layout tools, and I'm going to pop on image plane. Comes up. So I already have it named nicely. I'm going to hit top. I know that's top. I can see it here. So I'm going to hit open. Okay, there we go. So now we have our top view, and you see it's green, so it's selected. I can select, unselect. Okay. So there we go. All right. So now look at this. This is kind of interesting. Now we have these two things right here. And this is going to be really good for modeling later because, you know, you're going to be able to be looking at multi-views. Now I'm going to move these around a little bit. We're going to switch things. We're going to change things up a little bit. So it works a little better because like this is interfering with that one there. Okay. All right. So here I'm going to go back out. And what I want to do is all I'm going to do for this lesson is I'm going to load in the front view. We will use the back view later, but there's a couple other things that you want to add to adding in the back view. I would keep this simple and just have 3 images in there. And I want to get them moved around into nice convenient spots. Okay. So again, same thing. Go to the view you want to bring your image plane into. Hit spacebar. You know, you'll be in that single view. Go up to the top to get your little panel controls here. Okay. Go to image plane icon. Click on it. And I also want to pick front, okay? There we go. So now, let's go here. Look at that. Okay, now we have all these cool little image planes here, okay? Now we want to do some things. So we've gone over a little bit. We want to do some controls on these things. We want to move them around. We want to put them on layers so we can, you know, control their display. We can go into the attribute editor and you know, mess around with their transparency, etc. So there's a couple cool ways to deal with all this stuff and some neat little tricks and tips. And all these will be great for when you're working on things. So the cool thing is that these all exist in the orthogonal views. It doesn't matter where they are. I mean, if they're whatever distance they are, and you'll see in a minute. Like I'm going to move these out because I know I'm going to be modeling in this zone right here. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these image planes out of the way. I'm going to move them a little ways away so that I don't ever have any chance of hitting on them. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit on the first plane. There we go. Actually, you know what I think I'm going to do first is I'm going to rename all of these. So I'm going to do VW, and I'm just going to say IP for image plane. And I'm just going to give it an explicit name for what it is. So that one is the side. Yeah, I can see over here it's green. So I'm going to call it side. Okay. And then the next one I brought in was the top view, which is this. And I can select it. See, I'm selecting it. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go VW underscore IP underscore top. Okay. And I know that's the last one. So I'm going to go to VW underscore IP underscore front. Okay. All right. So maybe before I start modeling them, I'm going to do that trick I showed in the other lesson. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create layers for each one of these because that way I can switch them on and off when I want them. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on VWIP side and I'm going to go over to the layer box. And then remember the quick trick I showed you. This will create a layer with the selected because I know that's the only thing I'm ever going to want on that layer. So I'm going to click on that. Okay. Now, remember, in one of the other lessons, I told everybody about naming. So I'm going to just go over here. I'm going to copy that name. So whether you're on a PC or a Mac, just copy it. I'm on a PC, so I'm going to hit Control C. Okay. And then I'm going to go over here to layers. And I'm going to double click on layer. And I'm going to go into that window there. And I'm going to go Control V. Okay. Now, it won't allow me to have two things named the same thing. So in another lesson on layers, I told everybody to put the LYR prefix on things, and that way you'll know that's a layer. Okay. Now I have that IP there, and I know it's an image plane. Oh, you know what? One thing I want to do here, actually, hold on. cut out the side. Okay, I want to just put layer on the end. Okay, all right, there we go. All right, so the next one is, I'm going to double click on here. I'm going to hit Control C or copy in Mac, or if you're in Linux, do whatever it is you use for copying, or you can retype if you want to manually retype. You can give another name if you want. Okay, so I'm going to double click in there. I'm going to paste that name in there. I'm going to hit underscore, and I'm going to give it the word LYR at the end. Oops. There we go. Okay, I'll do the last one for the front view. Okay. Okay, here we go. Dropping that in. Underscore LYR. Okay. There we go. All right. And also too, just to learn controls and things like that, keep going over things, redundancy. These arrow buttons will let you move things up and down. So I like to keep the same order as I have over here. So I'm going to move the front one down. So I'm gonna use this down arrow, okay? And then the side one is on the top over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the up arrow key. There we go. And then in here, if you remember from some of the other layer lessons, these things can be, their state can be controlled. So if their pick state. So if you turn in template, you don't see anything. That's basically, if there was an object here, it would be a wireframe. So, but you can put it in reference mode. I'm going over reference mode. So reference mode, this whole trick here is very useful for when you start modeling. And I'm giving you super, tips and tricks from doing, almost 20, 30 years of heavy modeling on industrial design projects and buildings and animation projects. So, okay, so now, there you go. You can't select any of these things. That's great. Now, the other trick too is you can go over here and you can select them, right? So now you can still get to them, but you just can't select them in the windows, okay? This will be used in a few minutes because we're going to be moving these things around. All right, so now we want to start moving these things off because we've got this jumble of stuff here that's just, there's too many things right here in the middle. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start picking on these. And the first one I'm going to do is the side view. So I'm going to move the side view. I'm going to move it to over here. And I'm going to go out, zoom out in here. So since we have these nice grids here, I'm going to move them to nice grid points. I definitely love having things on grids. Okay. So, because in case I want to move things back or I need to get it to an exact point, it's very easy. So I'm going to go on the side here, or side view. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put grid snap on, okay? And then what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to go to the move command. And now what you'll see is I'm going to move this out over here, okay? So there we go. Now the top view I'm not going to move yet. I'm going to move the front view. So it's going to seem a little strange, but I'm going to move the front view back because it's still going to be seen in this view exactly the same because these cameras have no perspective on them, so it won't really matter. And then we're going to switch everything off in this view anyway, so you're not going to see anything here. You're only going to see these. Okay, so now I'm going to, we're not going to move the top view yet. I'm going to move the front view, okay? So I'm going to move that back, and I'm going to go, I have grid snap on right now, so I can go over here. I just be careful to pick, well, actually I have everything on reference mode, so you can't really do anything. Okay, so there we go, on a nice grid line there. Okay, there we go. All right, so as you noticed in these views, everything looks fine. One issue here is that when we model this, the model is going to be underneath the floor plane of this scene here. So I'm going to see, I don't know if this moves exactly. I don't think it's going to, oh yeah, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to increase my grid size so I can get a pretty precise move on all this. Okay, so again, using our grid tools. So I'm going to go up to the grid icon, right click, hit on grid options. Here's a time when you might, now you're going to want to actually do some pretty tight grids. Okay, I'm going to hit 100. So now look how dense this is. Okay, and the reason for that is this. I want to be able to move this pretty precise. I mean, I can go even more precision. I'm going to just kind of freehand it to snap it up to a certain point. So I'm not going to get too crazy on it. Okay. All right. So, but before I do that, I'm going to want to do something else. Let me turn off the grid for the moment because now I have this very dense grid. Oops, not that view. I'm going to turn it off in this view. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to group all these together so that I can move them all together. Okay, so I'm going to click on all of them. Okay. And I'm going to go over here to edit. And I'm going to group. Okay. I don't know if anybody remembers from the lesson, but now these are all, they're connected together in a hierarchy. So now when I pick on them, if I pick on this top group, I'm picking just on that and they will all move together. Okay. So I'm going to rename that. So first off, let me just check. When you group things, this little plus sign pops up, and that just means things are underneath here. So of course I'm going to rename this. So I'm going to do it VW_IP_GRP. Some of the other lessons I told everybody about some of these naming conventions for things. So in groups, I like to use all uppercase GRP, and then like as you notice for layer, I have LYR. So that's just an old school kind of methodology, which is very efficient. And if you go to a lot of animation studios, you'll see some of these naming conventions. Okay, so I can close that up. All right, so now, right now I'm still in object mode, so I don't want to be in that. Well, it doesn't matter, I have everything referenced anyway, so I can't pick anything. But I want to go up to hierarchy mode. So again, I have all the layers referenced, so I'm not going to be able to do anything here. But what I can do is I can pick it here. Okay. So now, if you notice, now when I move them, because if I move this independently, like if I move this up, then I got to go and kind of move this independently. I got to make sure that it's, at the right level. This way, I know it's going to go straight up. Okay. So I'm going to go back to this view here, and I'm going to move this up. Okay. There we go. Look at that. Very nice. Okay. Perfect. It's sitting just a little higher, but that's okay. I'm not gonna go too crazy on this one. Later on, I can adjust that. Okay. I just want to kind of show everybody quickly how to get these things set up. All right. So now, there we go. So now we do have one issue here. Okay. So if I go to this view, this one, as I remember, because everything was coming in at their 0 point. Because when you make an image plan, the best thing to do is make it on go to Photoshop or whatever photo editor you're doing, and put whatever image you have, but put it onto a 1000 by 1000 pixel image plane or image. Make an image square, because if you make it square, it'll come into Maya exactly at the 0 point. Even if your object isn't square, make your image plane square. Now you can make it bigger. You can make it 2000 by 2000 if you want more resolution, if you're doing really tight detailing. But 1000 by 1000 is usually good enough for just basic stuff. Okay, so now the thing is, everything came in the middle, but the middle of everything is about here. So I have this now too high. So now I need to access just that plane there and move it down. I need to move it down to this plane here. So there's two ways I can do that. I can either go in here, and since I have everything nice and named, I can pick it here, right? I still won't be able to pick it in the window. Like see in the windows, I won't be able to do it because I have my R over here, my reference. Now it's in set in reference. So I can pick it here. Or if I wanted to, like if you didn't want to deal with that, like if you just want to switch this on, then you can switch that on. And then now in the window, here's what's cool. So I can pick on just that one, okay? Oh, wait, let me get out of hierarchy mode. I got to be in object mode. Yeah, there we go. I was noticing I was picking on everything there. So yeah, so you see, this only the plane is picking. So that's the cool thing about referencing objects. All right, so now if I go to this view, if you go see in the front view, you can see in the front view, like, yeah, that's sitting over there. And then if I go here, it's sitting in the middle there. So that's exactly what I was talking about. All right, and I don't need these tight grids anymore. So I can go over here, grid options. I can go back just to tens. Okay, there we go. Okay. All right, so now I'm just gonna move this thing down to the plane here. Okay, so I can do that with grids. All right, I'm gonna switch this off. I can also use a hotkey. I'm gonna just, like, say I don't want to be on using grid mode all the time. I can actually just hold down the X key and it'll snap to the grid. Okay, or you make sure to have that press this button here. Okay. All right, so now look at this scene. Now everything's in their right places, and let me turn the grid back on. That's helpful for understanding what's going on here. Okay, so now everything will model correctly because now I can see the top view, but it won't be interfering with anything, and it's at the right position here. So, and then you notice too, in these other views, you don't see any of the other, the other image planes. So I'm gonna do Shift F, so everything's zoomed max. Okay. Actually, you know what? What I'm going to do is I'm going to do something special. So I'm going to go to this view and I will press just that and I will do F there. So I will center everything, okay? Because I realized the planes are now out in these other places. So let me go to the side view and I will type F. Yeah, there we go. That's nice and centered. And let me go to the top view. Okay, there we go. Okay, now everything's all nice and lined up. All right, that's a little trick I forgot there. All right, now let me turn this back to reference. Oh, no, it's turn to template. All right, so say I don't want to see any of these in these views here. I don't know if anybody remembers how we switch those off, but that's where we're going to use the attribute editor. So I'm going to go over here into the outliner and I'm going to pick on the side image, okay? And I'm going to go over here to these tabs here to the attribute editor. And I don't know if anybody remembers this, but here's how you control this. You it is the image plane is attached to that camera. You can see that's blanked out there, but it will become live soon. Now it's set to see in all views. So now if I do this, now I still see it in this view because it's in the side view, but I don't see it in any other view. So that's sometimes nice in the perspective view, so you don't have all these confusing things going on. You just see things in the perspective view, in the orthogonal view that you need. Okay, so now let me put in select mode because I had move mode there. Now the next one is we will do the same thing in the front view. Okay, so I'm going to go in the front. So now I have my attribute editor already set up. I'm going to set that. See, now it goes away, but it's still in the view I need it to be. Okay. So now when you deselect, if you notice, whatever's you're dealing with, an attribute editor or in a channel box, if you deselect, the box will still be open, but there's nothing active. You have to have an active object to be affecting. Okay, so now I'm going to go to top view, and then you see when I selected it there, it popped up over here. Okay, so now I'm going to click there. So now I have a clean slate here in the perspective view, but in each one of these views, I can be, modeling things and moving, points and adding things and curves and all kinds of stuff. Okay, so I'll deselect. I'm going to go back to my standard view here. And yeah, it looks like, I think the one last thing, yes, image controls. I forgot. Let's go to side view. Let's go back to our attribute editor. And sometimes you may not want these on full power, okay? So that's kind of like your transparency. So we've controlled what cameras it's looking through, but now we want to change its transparency, which is down here in alpha gain. So you can mess around with the slider. I mean, if you want to just look, so then you can visually see what's going on in the view, right? So I'm gonna pick 0.5 just for now, okay? Or maybe a little less, maybe 0.25. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and I'm going to do that for each one of them. So I did it for the side. It pops up. And like I said, when you select on it and you have the attribute editor already selected, then it's going to pop up directly. So I'm going to go 0.25. And a lot of this stuff is to taste. I mean, it's what you like. I tend to like a kind of light image just in the background. Okay, there we go. All right, now, what's the last thing I'm going to show you here? So now we can close these up if you want. You can shut them down. You can leave them open or closed, whatever you want to do. You can leave them open so you can see what's in there. You have your layers here. So we have our group, we have our layers, we've set our controls. You can put a box in the middle if you want, a bounding box. So you could scale this up to get it to the size you wanted. So sometimes you'll do that just to get this, like the kind of the rough scale of your object. So actually one thing I want to do first is I want to change the pivot on this. I'm going to move the pivot down. I've got a lesson on pivots, and you've done pivots a little bit. So I'm just going to do this quickly here. I'm going to do a quick trick for making the pivot. So I'm going to get into the move mode. I'm going to type D, and I am going to switch off of that, and I'm going to switch on to this. And that's moved to points. You're not actually going to move it to points, but it's going to be taking in the values of the points. So when you move it down, to make sure you're just moving on one axis, it'll snap. So it's looking for the values of the points on here, and it can't get to a point because there's no point in the middle of the bottom face, but it's averaging there, and it's saying, okay, I can go there, and then type D. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is now I want to get that off because I don't want to have things move into points. I'm going to go back to grid snap, right? So I'm going to move this up. Okay. Sometimes you'll create just a little box. It's called a bounding box, and we're going to roughly scale it up to the size of the car, and that just gives us a sense of the volume of the car. Okay. So, and now here's where you do want to have some of your view controls here. You're going to want to switch to wireframe. Okay. And we're going to scale. So when I scale, right now I'm just scaling to the full max. This is basically what they call the bounding box. It's the furthest points on this thing, okay? So it's a 9.04, so I'm gonna give it 9.5. Give it a little over. Yeah, just a little bit. Just have a whole number there, okay? So now I'm gonna go to another window, okay? And probably the top view is a good view to go to. So let me now switch my view style there. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale in this direction, just roughly to get the kind of volume size of this thing. All right, so 3 point. So I see now, so I'm calling non-proportional scaling right now. So those two scale numbers stay the same because I'm only pulling on one axis here. So I'll say, let's see if 3.5 will do it. Or it'll be a little too small. That's okay. Good enough. All right, now on top view. So now we need, I mean the front, but we need the height of the model. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to scale down. Okay. Oh, and 3.5. Interesting. Has some interesting proportions there. I wonder if Volkswagen thought of that on purpose. All right, excellent. That's interesting. So the height is the same as the width of the car. All right, so actually in this view too, I'm gonna put it on wireframe. Okay, so this is the last thing. So this is the full volume of your car. This is just so you can, if you pick on this, you'll actually know some of the rough measurements of the car. So I'm gonna also put that on, let me put it on select mode. Okay, and I'm gonna create a layer for that. And I'm gonna call it bounding box LYR for layer. Okay. All right, now and I want that at the bottom because this is just purely for reference. So, but now you have, you have a whole bunch of stuff for reference here. You can put in a plane, a ground plane too, if you like. Later on, when you start doing some further car modeling, you can put a digital cyc in here. So when you start setting up lights and images and things like that. You can basically create your own little digital photo studio in here. But yeah, so this is the basics of this lesson here. Let me actually, let me do one last thing here. So let me go bounding underscore box. And here we go. I don't want to name conflict here. So what I'm going to do is instead of LYR, I'm going to put GEO for geometry. Okay. And then you can also drop it right into I don't have to group it. I don't have to go through group control. I can just actually literally pick it up and drop it into this folder. It's a little tricky to get used to at first, but yeah, you just use your middle mouse button and you can just drop it in there. Okay. So now there you go. This is, let me reference that layer there. And this is good to go. Like after this, you'd be ready to start modeling this thing. So, and then of course, save it out. So go down now. Now it's time to go to File, Save Scene As. Okay. So now I'm going to go to, so now you know, look in here. Remember going back to the set projects and all that kind of stuff. So there it is. Now the project was image plane intermediate, and you see it automatically goes to scenes. So, and don't go messing around when you're saving projects. Don't go up a directory, just stay right in that directory because that's where Maya wants things, okay? So I'm gonna type in VW underscore Beetle, and I know it's a 1967 Beetle, so I'm gonna put 1967. You want to put as much information in because they were a car designer and you were like, what models that we're working on. And I'm going to put in IP just for image plane. So I know this is my image planes model because later I might not want to be modeling in the image planes model. I might want to load that up and then, but I may want to get back to just the clean image planes later at some point. Okay. So that's it. Then we go to File, Save As, and then you're done. Then you can, you can clear out your file. So I'm gonna let me do new scene. Okay, so now let's go on. So let me just make sure it all worked. Let me go open scene. There it is. It's going right to, because I set my project. It's going to look for it where it's supposed to be. Okay. And no, I don't want to save an untitled scene. Voila! Look at that. Boom! You're good to go. And this is a pretty complex scene. Like you have a lot of images going on here. But going forward, like especially if you're doing precision modeling. I mean, if you're just doing freeform modeling, this was overkill. But if you are doing some precision modeling, this is going to be really great. Okay, so that's about it. This is about as comprehensive as it gets for multi-view image planes. And you can always reference this video, and this will, whenever you get lost or in the future, just go through it. I did it step by step. Everything's super clean. Everything's exactly the way you're going to want to do it. Okay. All right. Onward to more modeling and more lessons. All right.